There's a lot been going on in the world, and there's quite a lot to cover, guys. It's in time for another episode of the World's Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of the World's Newsround. The time of this recording is the 16th of April at 9:45 a.m. UK time, just for reference, where we cover various topics of news outside the United Kingdom. And we're going to start here with CNN, guys, of the headline of why Iran attacked Israel and what comes next. So before I read into this article, I haven't really given my context of my thoughts on this attack. And I want to start by saying that this could have been avoided. The reason this happened in the first place, and it's very important that the context of people, one of the lack of things that we are not hearing enough of from a lot of media outlets is that Iran was simply responding in kind to what Israel did to its embassy in Syria. They attacked its embassy, and obviously attacking another country's embassy is against international law. You really, they are supposed to be, left out. You're not supposed to touch embassies. There's supposed to be severe consequences for that. And I feel like that the way that Israel have gone about what's happened in Gaza, and now obviously the attack that Iran has done on Israel, I just feel like Israel are kind of getting more and more of a freelance when it comes to the actions that they are doing. And they can hide behind the shield of anyone who criticizes Israel is anti-Semitic in any way, shape, or form. That's the position. That's one of the things that really they have this massive shield that says, "Oh, if you're against Israel, you're anti-Semitic," straight away off the bat. I've always stated that my criticism has always been with the Israeli government, never with its, not with its people, and that Israel and the damage that they've caused with regards to the conflict in Gaza. The more than 14,000 children have lost their lives, more than 35,000 Palestinians now lost their lives. And my also concern is that this is also could be seen as a distraction to distract the media, distract the public away from what's happening in Gaza as well. A part of me feels like, is it possible that if Israel did this attack on Iran's embassy in Syria as opposed to try and deflect people away from what's happening in Gaza as well? Was this also another reason? Because as of right now, there hasn't been a ceasefire called. People are screaming at the top of their lungs, calling for some kind of humanitarian ceasefire to be called between Hamas and Israel to stop the conflict there. And Iran obviously is very clear that what Israel are doing within the Gaza Strip, what they're doing in the West Bank is wrong. Iran, of course, are no good guys in any way, shape, or form. We are fully aware of how dangerous and volatile the nation is, and obviously they're the ones backing and supplying the Houthi rebels in Yemen, which are causing the problems with the global trade route along the Red Sea there as well. So there's also that situation we need to take into account when we're talking about Iran, and they have their own proxies within Syria as well, which is also another thing to take into account. And the reason why Iran and Saudi Arabia are not engaging is because they were mediated by China. China actually mediated I believe it was China. Yes, China mediated what was a peace talks between Saudi Arabia and Iran. And trust me, they are not on they are not on good terms in any way, shape, or form. And that was done by China. So what's going to happen next is, my honest answer as of right now, I honestly don't know. We know that Israel are likely to counterattack of some sorts. How they're going to do that, I don't know. My understanding from what I've read and what I've heard is that Britain and America and other Western allies are simply just going to protect Israel from any attacks from Iran, which is kind of like... which I really think we should not be doing. I don't think we should be doing any offensive or defensive in Israel. I think we should be staying out of it completely, in my opinion. I don't think we're helping ourselves in any way, shape, or form. I don't like the fact that Israel has so much weapons and power and influence, and given the history between some of the nations in the Middle East. I can understand why Iran feels how it feels about Israel and its attack on its embassy. Regardless of how you feel about it, it was, it should not have happened. And Israel thought they could do what they did and basically get away with it. Or Israel did what they did, expecting a retaliation from Iran to divert the world's attention away from what's happening in Gaza and to talk more about what's happening between Israel and Iran rather than Israel and Gaza. So there's that possibility as well. So I think, very important that we don't forget what's happening in the Gaza Strip. And Israel's reputation is continuing to be damaged every day that things pass as well. So let's have a read into this, you guys. So a wave of drones and missiles that flew towards Israel overnight on Sunday brought with it a new phase of tension, uncertainty and confrontation in the Middle East. Iran launched the unprecedented attack in response to a suspected Israeli strike on the Iranian consulate in Damascus, Syria earlier this month. It marked a new chapter in a discord between the two states that pre-located for years that has spiraled since Israel declared war on Hamas last October. The next step remains unclear, but Israel is facing pleas from its allies to step back from the brink of open warfare and choose a path of de-escalation. So here's what we need to know. So how did Iran attack Israel? More than 300 projectiles, including around 170 drones and over 120 ballistic missiles, were fired towards Israel in the immense aerial attack overnight. Approximately 350 rockets were fired from Iran, Iraq, Yemen and Lebanon's Hezbollah, according to Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson Daniel Haggi. However, 99% of the projectiles were intercepted by Israeli aerial defense systems and its allies, according to Israeli military, with only a small number reaching Israeli territory. Tehran's attack targeted the Navim air base, an Israeli army official said on Sunday, alleging that this is where Israel's early April strike on the Iranian consulate was launched from. Iran's attack on Israel, which country was involved. So about 355 rockets were fired from Israel overnight to Sunday by Iran and its allies in Iraq, Syria, Yemen and Lebanon. The attacks include about 170 drones, more than 30 cruise missiles and more than 120 ballistic missiles. Nearly all were intercepted according to Israeli military, and the White House, the United States, Jordan and Britain also took part in intercepting the attack. So Syria, Iraq, Iran, Yemen, Lebanon there, obviously, they're all pretty much working. Obviously, there are proxy wars in Iraq and Syria, but there are, but obviously, very much against Israel and its place there. Jordan carried out and intercepted over its airspace. The attack targeted Navim airbase, but only caused minor damage. So pretty much, it's very important to make this clear: is that there was very little to no damage. No lives were lost. There was a minor casualty. One child or something got hit by a bit of shrapnel, but nothing serious, my understanding. So it didn't really do any damage whatsoever there. This source is from the Israeli Defense Force. President of the United States, Foreign Minister Jordan, Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. This graphic, they're the sources. So Iran's ballistic missiles that reached Israel fell on the airbase in the south of the country and caused only light structural damage, Haggi said. The base is functioning and continuing its operations following the attack, with planes continuing to use the base, Haggi added. A senior US military official told reporters Sunday that the US assessed there is no significant damage with Israel itself. A US ship in the eastern Mediterranean Sea destroyed between 4 and 6 Iranian ballistic missiles during the attack, and aircraft in the region shot down more than 70 Iranian one-way UAVs headed towards Israel. The US Army Patriot missile battery shot down one ballistic missile in the vicinity of Erbil, Iraq, the official had said. So why did the attack take place? Israel and Iran have a long-standing rivalry and have been engaged in shadow wars for years. Israel's war on Hamas, waged since the militant attack on Israel got attacked on Israel on October 7th, has heightened those tensions. Iranian-backed forces in Iraq and Syria have launched air attacks aimed at US military positions in those countries, and Iran's leadership was warned that attacks by its allies won't stop until Israel's war with Gaza ends. But fear of a spiral war spiked further in early April when Iran accused Israel of bombing its diplomatic complex in Syria. And this is the thing. That was kind of like the straw that coated the camel's back in terms of how Iran was feeling already. And the clashes across the Middle East since the Hamas October 7th attack and ensuring Israeli offensive in Gaza. Iran and its allies have ramped up violence across the region, while the US has stepped up its presence in the Middle East. So Iran backed groups in the Middle East and its major US deployments here. So just to try and obviously explain a bit of the context here. So Lebanon's Hezbollah is the most powerful militia in the region. It is armed, trained, and funded by Iran. That's right on the border there with Israel. There, Syria. Iran has a direct presence in Syria and backs groups that have attacked U.S. forces in the ground since the war began. The U.S. has responded with retaliatory strikes. Iraq there, obviously, Iran wields significant influence over several militias who have launched dozens of attacks on U.S. forces in Iraq since mid-October. The U.S. has responded with retaliatory strikes. In April, for the first time, Iran launched direct assault on Israel in retaliation to an Israeli strike on its consulate in Damascus, Syria, earlier in the month. In Gaza, Iran's backed Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihadi group, which have launched attacks on Israel. And Yemen there, Iran-backed Houthi rebels have been striking ships in the Red Sea, disrupting global shipping. The US and UK have responded by striking Houthi targets in the Red Sea and Yemen there. You can see some of the numbers there in terms of soldier numbers, estimates. Approximate number of US troops in these areas. So Syria has roughly 800, Iraq 2,500, Jordan 3,000, Bahrain 9,000, Qatar 10,000, UAE 3,500, Kuwait has 13,500, Saudi Arabia 2,700 there. And it highlights there the attacks by Iran, attacked by Iran-led groups, attacks by the US, and attacked by Israel there. So engagements are taking, most of the engagements obviously are taking place between Syria and Iraq, in between those two there. And obviously then you obviously have Lebanon obviously trying to cause trouble there as well. But this is not just by October 7th. This has been, there's always been this tension long before October the 7th, and it's also important to directly put that context into perspective as well there. I think I just wanted to add that in there as well. So is this updated on the 14th of April with the latest available data. It notes that US military figures are approximately and may not include some countries with small numbers of military personnel. The placement of attack symbols does not indicate exact locations. There, so I just wanted to put that in context as well for those. The airstrike destroyed consulate building in the capital Damascus, killing at least 7 officials, including Mohammed Reza Saliki, a top commander in Iran's elite Revolutionary Guard, and senior commander Mohammed Hadi Hajar Ramdi, Iran's foreign ministry said at the time. Zelensky, a former commander of the IGRC ground force, air force, and deputy commander of its operations, was the most high-profile Iranian target killed since the then US President Donald Trump ordered the assassination of the IRGC general Qasem Soleimani in Baghdad in 2020. If I mispronounce any of the names, I apologize in advance. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali said Israel would be punished for the attack, while its President Imran Raski said it would not go unanswered, state news agency IRNA reported. The Iranian-backed Lebanon's militant group Hezbollah said the strike would be met with punishment and revenge. The region has been on edge ever since, with the US and Israel warning intelligence that the Iranian attack was imminent. How have Israel and its allies responded to the Iranian strike? Israel reacted angrily to the unprecedented strike while praising its military response. The Israeli allies in the West urged the country to work to de-escalate this crisis rather than respond in a way which could tip the situation to open warfare. Well, one of the ways they could do that is by stopping the procurement of Palestinian homes in the West Bank would be a start. That would be a first start. Second start would be the second start would be to call for to put the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. Both sides agreed to a ceasefire. That would be the second step. The third step would be to get the FF out of Gaza and let them and recognise it as an official state. That would be the third step. And I think from there you would be able to ease more tensions, decrease the tensions between themselves and other nations. I really think they would, but they would never agree to those things. I don't think they would agree to all of those things, but those are some of the reasons, some of the things that they could do. But given the history, it's near to next impossible for people in Israel and Hamas and Palestinians to ask for that. But if they want some kind of future, they need to be willing to compromise, and compromising seems to be something that Israel are having trouble doing, in my opinion. US President Joe Biden spoke by phone with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and made it clear that the US would not participate in any offensive operations against Iran, a senior White House administration told CNN. Biden told Netanyahu he should consider the events on Saturday night a win, as Iran's attacks have been largely unsuccessful, and instead demonstrate Israel's remarkable capability to defend and defeat even unprecedented attacks. I think it should be very clear as well that this attack they knew was coming. Iran knew. They were foreshadowing. They were telling everyone this attack was coming already. Everyone knew this attack was coming simply because of what happened a month ago. Iran was giving those hints and giving those warning signs to them. This was more of a test of Israel's defenses more than anything. It's the next attack that Iran causes is going to be the one. It's going to be the one that we're going to be saying, okay, where is this going to go from here? That's going to be the real question, is when Iran attacks again with its allies, where and when and how they're going to attack. They're going to be a lot quieter about it, and that's going to be the concern. So after a virtual meeting on Sunday, leaders of the G7 condemned in joint statement the Iranian attack and said it risks providing uncontrollable regional escalation. Nobody's condemning the attack that Israel caused on Iran's embassy. I don't see any shouting about there. We demand that Iran and its proxies cease their attacks, and we stand ready to take further measures now in response to further destabilizing initiatives, they said. Again, like, the ball is in Israel's court to de-escalate things. The decisions made by Israel's war cabinet will dictate the immediate next steps. The three-man group met Sunday and then again on Monday, and the attack sparked a heated debate over how to respond, two Israeli sources told CNN. On Monday, the war cabinet renewed military plans for a potential response during a nearly 3-hour meeting, Israeli officials said. The war cabinet remains determined to respond to Iran's attack, but it's not clear at this point if a decision has been made on what that response will be. However, there is a sense that Israel must act quickly, the officials said. The IDF Chief of Staff Lieutenant General Hezki Harvey said later on Monday that Iran's attack will be met with a response, while RDF spokesperson Daniel Haragi said the force will do all that is necessary to defend Israel and will do at the time that we choose. In addition to a potential military response, the war cabinet is also mulling diplomatic options to further isolate Iran on the world stage. One of its members, Benny Graza, said Israel will extract a price from Iran in a way that times suits us. Israeli government hardliners have called for firm action, and Finance Minister Benjamin Solly urged a response that resonates through the Middle East and national security. Imran Gavig said that Israel should go crazy. Apologies. Israel told the United States that it is not looking for a significant escalation with Iran, a senior Biden administration told reporters on Sunday. They're looking to protect themselves and defend themselves, the official said. On Sunday, Iran said a new acquisition and its advertising relationship with Israel had been opened, and the warning of a much bigger assault on the country should Netanyahu decide for a tit-for-tat attack. We have decided to create a new equation, which is from now on the Zionist regime attack our interests, assets, personnel, and citizens everywhere. At any point, we will retaliate against them. The commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, called the IRGC, Hazim Sami, told Iranian state TV, the Zionist regime is a term Iran uses to refer to Israel. It's very, very clear that we have to make very, very clear here that a lot of the debates and discussions that have been talked about since this attack happened, we're not talking enough about the attack that Israel done on Syria a month ago. No, they're not talking enough about that, and we have to remember that had that attack not occurred, this attack may not have happened. And we're not hearing any questions of why did Israel strike the embassy of Iran in Syria? Why was that? Why did they do that attack? Why is there no discussion about that? And yet it seems all to be to talk about, Iran attacked Israel. This is outrageous. This is atrocious. But we're not hearing a peep about that story, which is they see them. Iran are claiming, obviously, they're claiming they're just defending themselves. They are just simply defending themselves from this attack. That's the point that they're trying to make here. Whether you agree or disagree with it, that's the point of what they're trying to make. And I think that's a really important context to add here. We have to remember, Israel struck Iran's embassy in Syria, Damascus. It's very important to stress that. And Iran are basically saying that they're literally counter-attacking. They're retaliating. Is the exact, and you can put this in the context of this is the exact same kind of retaliation that Israel did on October the 7th after what happened, the atrocities caused by Hamas. They retaliated. Israel retaliated against Hamas and went in the Gaza Strip. After that, it's retaliation. But yet, Iran is being condemned for the retaliation. So, no, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that what Iran did is justifiable in any. Iran is justifiable. I'm not defending Iran, but what I'm saying is that people are not looking at the full picture. We're only being shown one half of this picture. We're trying to, to see like. It feels like to me that part of this is like everyone's blaming Israel for everything. No, I'm not blaming Israel for anything, for everything. But Israel could conduct themselves a hell of a lot better, and they could handle these situations a hell of a lot better if they simply just applied some common sense, to all this. But I feel like, a part of me feels like, before we move on, guys, a part of me feels like that these wars are only going to get more and more escalated. It's only going to get worse because nobody's listening to common sense here. And I do fear that European countries and America are going to get dragged into this one way or another, because if they want to protect Israel at all costs, they're going to be forced to get dragged in, and I don't like that. I really don't like that we could find ourselves getting dragged into this, guys. It's not good at all. Didn't think this article would go as long as it did, but there you go, guys. If you haven't already, please hit the like button and share this across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. Thank you for all those who have done. Right, the next one. I was waiting, obviously at the time of this recording, this is the latest from America, guys. This is the big story, obviously. Trump is in his hush money trial. And this is from NBC. Trump's New York hush money trial begins, and here's what we missed on the third day. The jury selection could stretch for days. So before I read into it, just a couple of things, because I did watch a couple of videos from the YouTuber Brian Tyler Cohen, who got and some of that. So a couple of things. So first of all, there's going to be a lot of jury changes over, because some jury members feel that their conscience is not a good idea for them to be a part of this. There's also cases that some jurors could also be picked out by the prosecution or defendants of whether they think they would not be fair and biased as well. So there's going to be, the jury selection is going to take a while to process in there. The other thing as well with regards to this case is whether or not Trump could find himself in jail a lot sooner, because he's still running his mouth, which he's not allowed to do. He's been told that his words will have consequences if he's not careful, and he's already still running his mouth, calling the whole thing a witch hunt. Trump also claimed after the first day that he should be at Jared Kushner's some kind of semester or something, or whatever. Jared Kushner, one of his sons was doing something, even though he's never goes out of his way to see his son on certain semesters or something like that. He was making excuses, saying that he should not have been here. He should be spending time with his son and whatnot. And I'm just like, dude, like, don't commit any crimes, don't cause any trouble, and you wouldn't be in this situation, I think, as well. And the third thing as well, I don't know if NBC will bring it up in the article here, is that there were times where Trump nodded off. No, I'm not joking. Nodded off, literally falling asleep. Sleepy Trump, Sleepy Donald, Dozy Donald, I think is a good word turn to it. So it's extremely hypocritical for Donald Trump to criticize Joe Biden and call him Sleepy Biden, when Dozy Donald can't even keep his eyes open in his own trial on the very first day. So that's really, really bad. And yeah, it's very embarrassing for Trump. And it's only the first day, and he's already, not like, for me, like, you're going to be falling asleep on what is a very big trial against you. Like, I know I can understand if it were like a week in or something, but we're talking about the very first day, and already he wants a nap. Yeah, so let's read into it, you guys. So Donald Trump, and now a former president on trial, has sought to turn his legal peril into a boost for his presidential campaign, animating his supporters and attempting to sow doubt into the motives of his opponents. But facing 34 counts of felony charges, Trump argued on the historic first day of his New York hush money trial that he's a victim of the criminal justice system weaponized against him. He called it an assault on the nation as the presumption Republican nominee for president. He repeatedly attacked the prosecution for waging election interference. And that's why I'm very proud to be here, Trump said. No, the only reason Trump's been here is because he doesn't want to face jail. Trump intends to be involved at every level at the extent possible, from the court conferences to the jury selection process, his defense attorney Todd Ballin has said. President Trump wants to be present at everything, Blunchin said. For much of the day, Trump was seated at the defense table flanked by his attorneys. At times, his voice could be heard at the back of the courtroom, though not what he was saying. At other moments, Trump shut his eyes, drawing speculation about whether he was still awake or just lost in thought. Here was what was happening in Monday's proceeding, the jury selection. So about 500 New Yorkers arrived for day one of Trump's criminal trial over hush money payments for processes that will take days and could take weeks. As the court works to weed out jurors who could be swayed by strong biases or self-jurors who may be hiding theirs. Questions like, are you or have you been to a member of groups like the Oath Keepers or perpetrators, referring to another far-right group, or used to narrow the pool? Other questions about a prospective juror's hobbies and educational background are less overly political way to gauge a juror's political potential fairness. By the time the judge presides over the case, juror Michigan said he was ready to begin jury selection. About 200 Manhattans were in the courthouse waiting to find out whether they would be selected. Trump was seated at the defense table at the first batch of 96 jurors that was brought into the courtroom, filling the pews behind him. Their names of those and other prospective jurors may be kept secret, except to the defense and the prosecution. Speaking to his lawyers, Trump gestured with his hands as Merkin discussed the handling of the jury pool's names. The defense and the prosecution each received copies of potential jurors' names, which Merkin has said he cannot in any way be duplicated or must be returned to the court. They also received copies of jurors' numbers. It can be an intimidating process. More than half of prospective jurors from the first batch of 96, at least 50, were excluded after they said they could not be fair and impartial. 9 more were excluded when Mershkin asked them whether there were other reasons for which they could not serve. Half of the remaining pool were about 34 were called to start what does that word mean? Void dire. In which they would be queried by both parties, including their media consumption habits. Trump appeared to track the process closely, reading along as it got underway. Trump allegedly told his former attorney general to fix Michael Cohen to send porn star Stormy Daniels hush money during his run for president in 2016, a claim that is at the center of charges in his case. Prosecutors said it was part of a scheme to suppress negative stories about Trump in the run-up to Election Day, which they argue should be charged as election interference. Trump has denied the charges, but prosecutors said that he is going after those he claimed are attacking him, including key witness in the case that has made that a tactic. The defendant has publicly embraced the public strategy of going after perceived enemies, the prosecutor Joshua Stenglass had said. Defending Trump, Blanche said he is one of the facing attack by witnesses against him. In response to the scandalous, repeated venom attacks by these witnesses, Blanche said, inside the courtroom, large monitors showed a closed-circuit feed of the judges and the defendants and prosecution tables. In court, Merchant read through a list of possible witnesses, name-checking members and of Trump's family, including his children, Donald Trump Jr., Ivanka, and his wife Melania, and his son-in-law Jared Kushner. Merchant named longtime associate of Trump, such as Kellyanne Conway, Dan Savvigo, Rudy Giuliani, his bodyguards Kelly Schreiber, the White House aide John McCain, and Hope Hicks, and Madeleine Wisselhoff. The risk of jail time, Trump, who might be in the courtroom every day of the trial, has decreed the case of persecution like never before, and on Monday, standing outside the courtroom, argued that it constitutes an attack on a political opponent. Mercer warned Trump that he risks jail time if he disrupts the trial, which would continue in his absence. Already, prosecutors are seeking to impose thousands of dollars in fines for 3 alleged violations of a gag order, including Monday mornings. If Trump fails to show up, a warrant could be issued for his arrest, an obligation that his campaign lambasted as a banana republic tactic. It is a case that should never have been brought, Trump said. The trial could drag on for weeks, rerouting to New York a presidential campaign that otherwise would be making overturns to voters in some states Trump would need to win in November. He resumed his criticism as the days came to a close, airing amongst his grievances a ruling by Michigan barring him from attending arguments at Supreme Court about the question of whether he is entitled to presidential immunity, which he has raised in another of his criminal cases. This is about election interference, Trump said outside the courtroom. He lashed out on social media as well, posting articles on Truth Social that denounced the case as politically driven and reposting support from a variety of defenders. As in other cases, Trump did not shy away from alleviating his legal entanglement for a campaign boost. A fundraising text message went out on the same time, thundering that he would never surrender. Trump's fundraising has surged during moments of potential legal peril, delivering much-needed financial and messaging boasts as he navigates the challenging of another White House run. On the first day of the trial, Trump made the court case his pitch. I just stormed out of court, he hammered in the message, and they think I'm finished, but I'll never surrender. Dude, you Listen, Mr. President, I hate to break this to you. Like, you broke the law. You broke the law, dude. Like, oh man, this is a balmy. This is an absolute balmy, guys. As prosecutors played evidence to the court that Trump's lawyers argued should not be admissible, Trump seated at the defense table watched along the monitor that included an exempt from Trump's deportation at Jean Carroll in the case in which he defended his lewd comments on an Access Hollywood tape that resurfaced and led up to the 2016 presidential election, as well as remarks from at a campaign rally late in the election cycle where he showed concerns over what he said were false accusations. Jurors should know that Trump's exact words, prosecutors argue, are also displayed in tweets. They said they were evidence of Trump's pressure campaign on Cohen not to cooperate with prosecutors. Nixon reinforced a ruling that the Access Hollywood could not be played to the jury, though it could be discussed, and barred prosecutors from introducing a deportation video about it. When prosecutors asked to introduce evidence about allegations of Trump's coordination to the national editors to catch and kill stories potentially devastating to his 2016 campaign, Trump's attorney dismissed the request as a sideshow. Mershon ruled that the evidence would be admissible. In a win for his defense, Mershon denied prosecutors' request to bring in other allegations against Trump of sexual assault, complete heresy, he called them. Mershon gave Trump a 24-hour deadline to enter final exhibits into evidence. You have 24 hours, he ordered. Whether you don't identify in the next 24 hours, you will be prolonged from using. Mershon said he will wait to hear arguments next week about whether Trump violated his gag order by posting social media comments about witnesses in the case. Last week, Trump said he would absolutely testify in the trial, and today, Mershon will conduct a hearing designed to ensure that the decision is well informed, known as oral hearing. He will delve into what will come up under cross-examination when Trump is on the witness stand. Mershon rejected a request that Trump to be excused April 25th to attend a Supreme Court argument about his immunity claim. In another of his cases, Trump has argued that he should be able to push back two filing deadlines on the basis that his attorneys will be overloaded with the New York trial over the coming 6 weeks. The request shows how the trial has become the latest opportunity for Trump's team to stall forward momentum on the legal charges against him. This is a lot, guys. I know. It's a lot. But, you know, this is his own fault. This is his own fault, guys. He really should have not... it's his own fault to be putting himself in this situation, and it's one that's going to go on for quite a while. We are going to be talking about this without a shadow of a doubt. I wouldn't be surprised if I bring it up again on the Snowflake Corner on Friday. But this case, the fact that he's actually sitting there in the courts, in these cases, trials, it really is quite a thing to behold. And I just think, you know, the way, you know, rather than actually defend, and I've said this before about Trump, rather than actually defend himself and his case, he's actually attacking the system that protects the so-called American democracy, protecting the courts, protecting the judge, calling out the courts, calling out the judges, calling out the system all overall, as opposed to taking ownership and responsibilities for his failings. And there is lots of evidence to support that as well, guys. What do you think, Ollie? Ollie's not in a talkative mood. What have you done with the My mic turned off there for a second. Good thing I checked it. Yeah, if it ever turns red, we know it's off. But the no point looking at the lava lamp, guys. It's not formed anyway, so you can't there. But Ollie's not a fan of Trump. He's not a personal fan of Trump, if you guys are wondering. So before I go to the next one, guys, which is a fascinating one to say the least, guys, if you haven't already, please consider becoming a YouTube member for little as 99p. Being a YouTube member really does financially support me in the work that I do here. And I'm very proud to say that I have, at the moment, more than 80 members, which is absolutely fantastic. And I want to say thank you to everyone who's gifted memberships or has resubscribed to the YouTube membership. It really does mean a lot, and it really does help me financially support me in every single way. Other ways that you can financially support me is, of course, by buying me a coffee or by initiating a super chat down below if you ever want to do that in the Premier Chat, or as well. Other ways you can also financially support me is by joining the Patreon. Joining me on Patreon you're not just joining the Patreon, you're also getting access to additional content just by joining the Patreon as well. And I have additional content both on Patreon and Rumble, which you can both see them for free, but you can also get additional content by joining the Patreon. And I actually get a bigger percentage of the cut if you join Patreon as well. So thank you to everyone who has financially supported me in any way, shape or form. It is greatly appreciated. Interesting one here from The Guardian, you guys. So Russian military trainers arrive in Niger as African country pulls away from the US. The West African states turn to Russia to help their fight against insurgents, throwing into doubt future of operations with the US. So more and more of China and Russian influence within the continents of Africa is becoming more and more paramount. The use of propaganda is being used. We know that like some of the nations that obviously have relied on France for a long time, that their ways are being waded. We obviously talked about, I think it was last week, we had a video from Senegal's new president who talked about how France needs to basically move away and stop basically influencing Senegal politics. Niger is obviously one that's had influence by France, and I was already aware that there was already Russian military influence already taking place in Niger, but now you can actually see right here, military trainers speaking to the media here in Niger. So you can tell that Russia are already having their this is just kind of confirming that Russia looking at an opportunities here to influence other nations here. So Russian military trainers have arrived to reinforce Niger's air defense as the West African country pulls away from close operations in the US, with the US in counter-terrorism efforts turning instead to Moscow to help as it fights Islamic insurgents. State television in the country's broadcast footage of Russian military trainers arriving in the country on board a plane equipped with military supplies late on Thursday. 2 Russian trainers were filmed in front of the plane wearing military uniforms, cap and face coverings. "We are here to train the Nigerian army to use military equipment that is here," one of the Russian trainers said in the broadcast, speaking in French. "We are here to develop military cooperation between Russia and Niger." The arrival of Russian forces make it complicated for the US forces, along with diplomatic and civilian personnel, to remain in the country, and throws into doubt the future of a joint Niger-US counter-insurgency operation. Until recently, Washington considered Niger a key partner and ally in the region, swept by coups in recent years, investing millions of dollars in an airbase in a deserted desert area that serves as the heart of American counterinsurgency operation in the sub-Saharan region known as the Sahel. The US is also invested heavily in training for Niger forces to beat back insurgents by militias linked to Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, which ravaged the country and its neighbours. But last summer, some of those elite US training forces took part in a coup to oust the elected president. As recently as December, some 600 US troops and hundreds more contractors were stationed in Niger, tasked with flying manned and unmanned surveillance operations and supporting local forces with jihadist groups. Since then, the relations between Niger's new leaders and Washington have quickly deteriorated. Following the visit last month of US delegations by a top US envoy in Africa, Molly Fees, the Jura, announced on state television that the flights from the US-built airbase were illegal and that it was no longer recognized the American military presence in the country. The Jura criticized the US for warning Niger against cooperating with Russia and Iran, saying it was trying to force the African country to choose between partners. The Russian plane arrived on Wednesday night, the report said, and carried and carry Russian military supplies to help Niger improve its air defences. The broadcast said the arrival of Russian trainers followed a call between Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, and the country's military leaders in March. Niger's military leaders are seeking to diversify their partnerships and achieve greater sovereignty, the broadcaster had said. The arrival of Russian air defense systems can be viewed as part of Juda's effort to reclaim sovereignty, this time over its airspace, and force the US and Russia to cooperate with each other in Niger, said John Lechner, Africa analysis and authors of the Wagner Group, but added that such cooperation is unlikely. He said the Niger government may be trying to compel the US forces to withdraw without explicitly pushing them out. Since 2012, Niger and other neighbours in the region have been gripped by a worsening insurgency fought by groups linked to Al-Qaeda and ISIS. And this is this is an ongoing thing that's been going. This is ongoing conflicts that are taking place in Niger and other nations for a while. And there is entirely possible that the US and Russia could work together on beating out insurgents there in those countries. It's entirely possible, but it's also at the same time, it's like, well, given how we feel, given how both sides kind of feel about what's going on with the war in Ukraine, for example, and that there's obviously that issue, and obviously Russia obviously cutting itself off of most of the world. Obviously, when they cut off themselves with Europe on a number of things as well. I already know that Russia has some influence in what's going on with they're obviously supplying the rapid support forces in Sudan, which we'll cover later on as well. So this is a cause for concern, because once again Russia using its influence in Africa, in another nation here. But I'll try to keep an eye on it as much as I possibly can, guys. Moving on, guys. The next one here we have is from Eurozone. So we're going out of Africa and the Middle East to one story here in Europe. An interesting one to say the least. So the headline is: Poland ends its long waits and gets its first payment of EU recovery funds of 6.3 billion euros. So what's the story about? So essentially, we'll read into it in just a moment. But essentially, what the story is about is that Poland has always had a long, hard right-wing leader for the past, I think it was 8 years that they've had before Donald Tusk won the presidency. So the introduction of Donald Tusk as president has unlocked the funds that they haven't had access to before because of some of its antics by the previous administration that's been in power for 8 years. And they've not been able to get as much funding from the EU as they have been before. This 6.3 billion euros is obviously going to make a massive difference to Poland's, will really help in terms of Poland's economy. And I think it will also help Donald Tusk in his position there, because he has because of his past, obviously, in his history. This will obviously be a welcoming boost to Poland's economy, that is for sure. But how Donald Tusk uses that money and his government is a question, that's for sure. So Poland has received 6.3 billion euros under the European Union's Recovery Fund, the first payment of its kind. The payment was confirmed on Monday, ends a long wait for the countries whose national plan was approved in June 2022, but remained blocked over persistent concerns about a lack of judicial independence and democratic backslide. The decline was credited to the Law and Justice, PIS, the hard-right party that governed Poland for 8 consecutive years and spearheaded far-reaching reforms that expanded political control over the judiciary and packaged courts with loyalists. The most controversial reform empowered the disciplinary chamber of the Supreme Court to push magistrates according to the concert of their verdicts. The changes prompted a protracted standoff between Brussels and Warsaw, including a landmark ruling from the European Courts of Justice that struck down the overhaul. But the country's share of the recovery fund, a total of 34.5 billion in low interest loans and 25.3 billion euros in non-repayable grants, stood frozen until Donald Tusk took over as Prime Minister and began tabling legislation to undo the PIS-era legacy. The European Commission officially unblocked the money in late February, days after Tusk's government presented a 9-bill action plan to restore judicial independence and adopt a ministerial order to discontinue unjustified proceedings against judges. Yes, one of the things that they were doing was the previous administration was trying to rip up the neutrality of the justices and the work that they did in in the court systems and whatnot. And Donald Tusk is obviously trying to undo that damage now that he's in charge, which is what needs to be done. There needs to be that non-political influence on judges. So hopefully he will be able to get that done sooner rather than later for them. The new cabinet is also committed to abiding by the ECJ ruling and respect the primary of EU law, which PIS had contested, exacerbating the row. The Commission considered Warsaw overtunes to significantly meet the two overarching conditions of super milestones relating to the judiciary and allow Poland to gradually receive payments under the blog's 750 billion common pot. The moves paves way for the disbursement of 6.3 billion, made up of 3.6 billion in loans and 2.7 billion in grants, which are earmarked for diversity energy supplies, combating air pollution and modernising agricultural production, among other things. Until now, Poland has only received 5.1 billion of the pre-financing, but this was done without strings attached and was the same for every member state. It's an important day for Poland, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said on Monday, and this is just the beginning. Good cooperation brings results, said Tusk. Katarzyna Pastuszka, Poland's Minister for Regional Policy, described the sum as a large transfer from the EU in the history of our membership. Also, it's expected to submit 2 more requests this year to receive an additional 23 billion. All payouts will be subject to completion of investments and projects that could be paused if Tusk's judicial plans suffer a setback. The 9 bills under the action plan will require the signature of President Andrzej Duda, who is politically aligned with the PIS party and has used his veto power in the past to block legislation that, in his view, infringe upon his presidential prerogative. Since leaving office, PIS officials have accused the Commission of playing politics and withholding the money to effect a change in government. So it kind of does. Obviously, I've said about the president, obviously, who's very aligned with the PIS party. That's the opposition party now, and I hope that he's not going to be in the way that's going to cause the funding of actually coming in for the people for this. You would like to think that he would be more neutral on the situation, but obviously I'm not an expert when it comes to Polish politics, without a shadow of a doubt, and I think everyone will agree with me on that. However, it's still for Poland's sake, hopefully it will not be too much of an issue, and that he will approve it and more funds will be able to come in for the benefit of the people of Poland, that is for sure. So we'll have to wait and see on that one, won't we, Ollie? Oh, I know, don't worry, we're getting our funny break in a moment, guys. We've got a funny break now. Yeah, as I said, guys, we're going to take a little short break, about 47 minutes in. We've gone in a lot longer than I expected. We've still got plenty more to cover here today. If we have time, we'll go through we'll look at the conflict in Ukraine as well, because I do think it's very important to look at as well. This video, guys, I hope you enjoyed this one. This one is from Foil in Arms. It's the headline of When a Snob Lands in the Emergency Room. I hope you guys enjoy this one.
Unbelievable. They tried to pawn me off on a junior doctor. I refused to be seen by anyone less than a consultant. So what ails thee, my man?
I fell in a building, so I think it might be broken.
I lost an argument with a corkscrew. I was attempting to open a 1972 Bordeaux. Now I know what you're going to say, Dennis, 72 was a terrible year for Bordeaux, but alas, here I am. Would you like a riddle?
No.
I'm long when I'm young, I'm short when I'm old. Or that means for sure, Dennis. What I mean for sure, Dennis. I'm learning Mandarin. Never waste a moment. What I mean for sure, Dennis. A candle.
Yeah.
Candle. No. See, I normally would be at a private hospital, but there was a problem at the bank. As the white-hot pain shot through my body, I believed my days of pianoforte were well behind me. Now, I know what you're going to say, Dennis. There's plenty of one-handed pieces that an amateur clavicordist may still attempt. Ravel's Concerto No. 4, Je ne quitte Capriccio, just to name but a few, but I must interrupt you. I did envisage the extended wait, so I brought some emergency supplies. I'm happy to share.
Oh, well, cheers. I'm probably all right at that.
Just the basics, I'm afraid. Manchego, camembert, and a particularly runny brie. Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sure the
I don't.
doctors in charge won't mind a bit of battle sauce for myself and himself. I'm sorry to bother you again, but they've asked me to put down an emergency contact.
Yes, just one moment. Kevin Murphy?
Yes, yeah.
Yes, so from the physical examination, we can tell there's possibly some sort of hairline fracture maybe in the radius.
Hairline fractures.
It's probably too early to tell at this
they
point
to investigate further
the extent of the damage,
Right.
whether it's soft tissue damage or
further, we should find out.
and perhaps when the X-ray is ready.
Well, and then we'll know more. The woods, lovely, dark and deep, but I, having promises to keep
It's not worth it.
and miles
It's actually
to
not
go
worth it.
before I sleep.
Robert Frost.
Ah, yes.
Oh, you know what? I can't remember the last time I've been in an emergency room or in A&E where I probably when I was very, very young. But you know, for those of you who have, you know, there's always like there can always be that sometimes that one person that maybe want to be a bit. There can always be that person where somebody just wants to be an absolute nuisance, and it's just like, no, go away, stop being a nuisance, sort of thing. So you do sadly get those people, unfortunately. And you also get you can also get a few Looney Tunes as well, guys, with this next story. I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to monetize this video just because of what I'm gonna show you guys here. So the headline is from CNN. Georgian politician punches opponent in the face in a brawl over foreign agent law. Yes, a politician got punched in the face. This is not how you do politics. I'm probably not going to monetize this video as much as I want to. I'm not going to monetize this video. But I wanted to share this because I just wanted you to see just how bonkers this is here. I'll probably turn off the mute, but you just need to just see this. So this is lawmakers in the brawl as the parliament considers the controversial bill. This is not how you do politics, by the way, guys. This is not how you do politics. I'll play it one more time because I know some people want to see it one more time. But you see it in real time. Like, he literally just lunged right at his head when the attack hit there. Like, literally, like, absolutely, like whatever you might think of policies and procedures and whatnot, this is just ridiculous. Like, this is like I just cannot believe that someone would just lunge in at someone like that. It's just absolutely crazy that someone would just do something like that. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane, guys. So let's read the context into more of this, guy. So Georgian lawmakers came to blows in Parliament on Monday as the ruling party legislators look set to advance a controversial bill on foreign agents that has been criticised by Western countries and sparked protests at home. Footage broadcast on Georgian television showed Mukmar Bondi's, leader of the ruling Georgian Dream Party parliamentary faction and the driving force behind the bill, being punched in the face by opposition MP Akio Eskevi while speaking from the dispatch box. The incident prompted a wider brawl between several lawmakers, an occasional occurrence in Georgia's often raucous parliament. Footage shows Eskevi being greeted with cheers by protesters outside the parliament building. Georgian Dream said earlier this month he would reintroduce legislation required organisations that accept funds from abroad to register as foreign agents or face fines, 13 months after protesters forced it to shelve the plans. The bill has strained relations with European countries and the United States, who have said they oppose this passage. The European Union, which gave Georgia's candidate status in December, said the move is incompatible with the blog's values. It will reintroduce legislation requiring organisations to accept funds from abroad to register as foreign agents or face fines. Interesting. Yeah, this is an interesting bill. Yeah, Georgian Dream said it wants the country to join the EU and NATO, even as it has deepening ties with Russia and face accusations of authoritarianism at home. It says the bill is necessary to combat what it calls Prisco liberal values imposed by foreigners and to promote transparency. Yeah, this is definitely a consequential bill, that's for sure. Georgia's government said Prime Minister Rafi Kalabaski held a meeting. I know I mispronounced the name, guys. I apologise. A meeting on Monday with EU, British and US ambassadors at which they had discussed the bill. In a statement, Kalabaski defended the draft law as promoting accountability and said it was not clear why Western countries opposed it. Georgian critics have labelled the bill the Russian law, comparing it to similar legislation used by the Kremlin to crack down on dissent in Russia. Russia is widely unpopular in Georgia due to Moscow's support for the breakaway regions in Askabiska and South Osetia. Russia defeated Georgia in a short war in 2008. Several hundred demonstrators gathered outside the parliament building ahead of a mass protest that civil society organisations have called for Monday meeting. Once approved by members of the Legislative Legal Affairs Committee, which is controlled by Georgian's Dream and its allies, the Foreign Agent Bill can be proceeded to a first reading in Parliament. Georgia is due to hold elections in October. Opinion polls show that Georgian's Dream remains the most popular party, but it has lost ground since 2020 when it won a narrow majority. I don't know the bill too well, but just going by the reading here, guys, my straight away, like, and obviously people will provide I'm sure some people may have some context behind this. Please do in the comments below. This doesn't look like a bad bill, and maybe that's just me misreading it, but it doesn't look like a bad bill to disclose where you're getting funds from foreign agents or whatnot. Like, do we not want that being made public, sort of thing? Like, that's kind of what I'm saying. Legislation required organisations that accept funds from abroad to register as foreign agents or face fines. Foreign agents, I see. Yeah, I get. Okay. I misread this. So the part where it says they're foreign agents. Interesting. Okay. Maybe it's just the terminology that's being used. Yeah, it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one for me to be. But just on the obviously the brawl, I just think like there's a way to deal with things, guys. And yeah, that's not how we deal with things. Like we're better than this. We are not. This is not how we deal with issues, guys. I don't think that's the way to do them. So the next one I got for you guys is from Bloomberg, and this one is about 1 year on from the conflict, guys. The conflict, yes, the one I've been talking about for many times, as you guys are aware. Sudan, 1 year on, guys, and what has the world done since then? Oh, we've highlighted 1 year on. What's happened 1 year on? Oh, we haven't been talking about it. Why haven't you guys been talking about it? Oh, it's not really. It's because of where it is geography-wise, But obviously, when Israel is obviously a very big discussion we have to talk about. Obviously, what's happening in Europe is a very big discussion. Though if it's like something in Africa, we don't really want to talk too much about it. I've said this before and I've said this again. You don't hear enough about what's been happening in Sudan. And I'm very happy to say that on my channel that I have covered extensive stories whenever possible about what's happened with the conflict in Sudan over the past year since the conflict started. It's been absolutely terrible. So many people's lives have been lost. Many people's lives have been destroyed. Homes, the famine that has taken place, millions of people displaced. And the lack of international support to try and mitigate some kind of ceasefire, some kind of mediation between the Rapid Support Forces and the Sudanese army has been nothing short of atrocious. And it's really, this war just doesn't seem like there's going to be any kind of solution coming anytime soon still. And there was supposed to be talks this month between Saudi Arabia and between the two sides. Whether or not that will happen or not, I'm again holding my fingers, but I'm not expecting it. But it's such a sad state of affairs what's happening here in Sudan. So 1 year on, Sudan's civil war is a forgotten crisis. International donors have committed almost 1,000 times as much aid to Kiev as they have to in Sudan. SL Ahmed was fixing mobile phones at a stall in the bustling Al Valley market in the east side of Sudan's capital Khartoum when the war broke out in the North African country last April. Now the market is in ruins along with most of the city. The country has been torn apart and he's been living in a makeshift displacement camp 300 miles from home. My entire life has been flipped upside down, he said, and I see that the world has totally forgotten about Sudan. They have. 1 year into Sudan's civil war, the brutal conflict destroyed the North African country's social fabric and sparked both the world's biggest displacement crisis and threatens the largest hunger crisis, yet it remains almost completely absent from the global conversation, consumed by the wars in Gaza and Ukraine. International donors have committed nearly 1,000 times as much aid to Kiev as they have to Khartoum. Foreign legislators routinely debate support for Israel and the suffering of innocent Palestinians. Few comment on the 15 million Sudanese caught between the brutal rebel militia that have perpetrated the Darfur genocide and a vendor military aligned with Islamic extremists from a former engine. Regime. Absolutely. Absolutely. This is 100% true. Absolutely true here from this piece. There's more people evacuating. Now just look at the just horrible. So the war began on April the 15th last year when the Rapid Support Forces militia and the Sudanese armies turned on each other. They since fought a brutal war for control of the mineral-rich country that killed almost 15,000 people, left the capital in ruins, and drawn accusations of war crimes. Half the Sudan's people need food assistance. 11 million people are displaced, and the prospect of widespread famine looms in a conflict that has destabilized the region and drawn in foreign powers, including the United Arab Emirates and Iran. When the war started, everyone thought the war would not go on for a long time, said Mamadou Al-Noor, a human rights lawyer working in the UK and a member of the Sudanese Professional Association, a pro-democracy trade union. Unfortunately, now the feeling is the war will never end. The difference between how Sudan is prioritized compared with other major conflicts is most evident in terms of aid. International donors, mostly Western, have committed $132 billion to Ukraine, excluding military support, since the start of the war. According to Ukraine's support tracker at the Kyiv Institute of World Economies, that compares with the $1.5 billion in total humanitarian assistance pledged by international donors for Sudan in June last year. While the UN has raised only 5% of the $2.7 billion it estimated needed this year. Donors plan to gather in Paris again on Monday for another high-level pledging conference. While Western powers focus elsewhere, Middle Eastern states have taken a more active role in Sudan. The UAE is a key backer of the RSF, supplying it with weapons and funding, according to a leaked UN report. The UAE denies any involvement. Meanwhile, Iran has supplied combat drones to the army, according to Western diplomats. The rise of the Gulf, the main contenders of Sudan's capture, and competitors vying for influence have a say in the stake in the type of intervention granted to the country, said Reganelite, a Sudanese activist and researcher who fled the conflict and is now living in London. There is an intervention, but just the type that makes things worse. On the ground, Sudan's complex patchwork of allegiances and rebel armies only make things more complicated, with well-armed militia groups taking sides, Islamic joining army ranks, and ordinary civilians taking up arms. That volatile mix has raised fears that even if a ceasefire is struck between the Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and RSF leader Mohammed Hamid Dagalo, a long shot given repeated attempts brokered by the UAE, Saudi Arabia and others have failed, fighting will continue unabated. Complex and shifting internal dynamics have also created strained alliances. Shagna Adun Tala, 24, is among many young Sudanese who previously fought the army to end the military decades-long grip of power 5 years ago and have now joined the ranks. Is willing to do anything to prevent the RSF from taking power. We have traditionally had clear disputes with the leadership of the army, said Tala, who belongs to a group called Activists Without Borders, but joined the 9th Airborne Division in July after he was appalled by reports of RSF atrocities. But we managed to defeat the RSF in all these battles, and I'm happy and proud of that. Tala serves alongside Islamic militias that have been integrated into the army, raising fears of a revival of extremism that have long plagued the country, hosted by Osama bin Laden. Implemented harsh Shia-inspired laws were designated a state sponsor of the terrorism by the US during the 30-year rule of dictator Omar al-Bashir. Rebel groups from Darfur have also backed the army in recent weeks. There's a picture of some of the fighters there. People underestimate how proxies and splinter groups have dragged this war on, said Amri Fard, a former advisor to the Prime Minister Abdullah Hamid. A ceasefire, even if possible, would not result in peace. No, it would not. There's still a lot of things. Yes, even if the guns were put down, there's still a lot of complications, a lot of factions, a lot of ideologies and religions are involved in all this. It's a very complex situation, Sudan. It's extremely complex. It's very, very clear here, guys. While Joglo has positioned himself as a noble statesman on trips abroad, his forces at home are accused of committing war crimes, including rape, targeting of civilians, and looting. The US has also accused the army of war crimes. Last month, the World Food Programme Executive Director Cindy McCann called the war in Sudan a forgotten crisis, a sentiment echoed by US Ambassador and United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield. There is no food, we have no access, McCann said, and our ability to be able to fund it isn't just meshing, we don't have enough money. For Sudan, like Qatar, an independent analysis who fact Khartoum earlier in the war, the idea that the conflict is forgotten is a function of those very same leaders' indifferences. There is an astounding and bizarre trend of decision makers such as McLean and Thomas Greenfield sounding the alarm on Sudan, but essentially doing very little to solve the problem in their respective positions. So Khalil, if Sudan is a forgotten crisis, then prioritize it. But how do you prioritize it? How do you make people stand up and pay attention to what's happening here? That's the question. How do we make Sudan more of a massive issue? The thing is that the media decides what they want to cover and what they don't want to cover. This is the thing. It's a major issue, guys. It's one that needs to be talked about again and again. Sudan is a massive, major crisis that has been going on for a year, and the world continues to not talk about it, not to do enough action about it. Yes, of course, what's happening in Ukraine, what's happening in Gaza, in the Middle East, is obviously they are massive issues that need to be that needs our help in resolving those issues without a shadow of a doubt. But also, this is also an issue here that's been going on for a year. And many people are finding themselves displaced. Many people's lives have been destroyed, and there doesn't appear to be any solution in sight. I've even talked about what's been happening in Haiti as well, a while back as well. Haven't heard anything about Haiti. What's been happening there? What's been done? Have Kenyan authorities gone or not? You know, that thing as well. So, and then there's what's happening in Myanmar, what's happening there, what's being done in that conflict as well. Lots of things that the media doesn't really talk enough about in terms of world news, and I think these conflicts and whatnot are really need to be highlighted, guys. So I'm just keeping an eye on the clock, obviously, guys, because of the time I normally premiere this video. I've got one more. I've got actually 2 more articles, but we'll see how things go. But if you haven't already, please hit the like button and share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And if you haven't already subscribed, please consider subscribing because it really does help support the channel. So this is a short one here from Al Jazeera, guys. This headline is: a former US diplomat who spied for Cuba sentenced to 15 years in prison. Victor Manuel Rocha conducted one of the longest lasting infiltrations of the US government, the Justice Department said. 15 years, a former US diplomat, wow, who spied for Cuba. Interesting. Let's read into this, guys. So Victor Manuel Rocha, a former United States diplomat, has been sentenced to 15 years in prison after admitting to acting as an agent in Cuba in what the US Department of Justice has called one of the highest-reaching, longest-lasting infiltrations of the US government. According to US prosecutors, Rocha secretly supported Cuba's governing Communist Party and aided the country's intelligence gathering against Washington for more than 4 decades, including a 20-year-old career in the US Department of State. This is quite huge. Man, like 4 decades. This man has been a staunch supporter of US and whatnot, but he's actually been a spy for Cuba. Including a 20-year career in the US Department of State. Wow. Like, talk about really getting influenced in there. It's quite massive. Today's plea brings an end to more than 4 decades of betrayal and deceit by Mr. Rocha. David Newman, a senior national security official at the U.S. Justice Department, said at a news conference in Miami on Friday. For most of his life, Mr. Rocha lived a lie. Rocha, 73, was arrested in December 2023 at his Miami home on allegations that he had engaged in clandestine activity for Cuba since at least 1981 when he started his career as a U.S. diplomat. He was accused of meeting Cuba intelligence operatives and falsifying information to U.S. government officials about his contacts. An undercover FBI agent posed as a representative of Cuba's General Directorate of Intelligence and repeatedly met Rocha in 2022 and 2023. To this agent, Rocha admitted his decades of work for Cuba. According to the court document, the agent called himself Mitchell, or Rocha admission was recorded. He got caught out by an FBI agent. Wow. You honestly just don't know who you're talking to these days. That's astonishing. Watcher spoke in praise of late Cuban Miguel Fidel Castro and bragged about his service for more than 40 years as a Cuban mole in the heart of U.S. foreign politics policy circle, prosecutors said in court records. Bragging is not a very good idea, even if it's someone that is your ally, because it could come back to bite you in the backside, which is what has happened here. What we have done is enormous. It's more than a grand slam, he was quoted as saying. U.S. officials have said they may never know the full extent of Russia's cooperation with Havana. U.S.-Cuban relations. Washington and Havana have always had strained relationships for more than 60 years since Castro and his team of armed revolutionaries overthrew a U.S.-backed dictatorship. The U.S. government tried to remove Castro after this in what was called the Bay of Pigs invasion and through multiple assassination attempts over the following decades. In 1962, Cuba also allowed the Soviet Union to secretly install nuclear missiles, which were deterred by U.S. surveillance. The Cuban Missile Crisis led to 13 days of tension, bringing the U.S. and USSR to the brink of nuclear war. While former U.S. President Barack Obama took steps to ease tension with Cuba, former U.S. President Donald Trump reversed several of Obama's steps, banning Americans from traveling to Cuba and placing business sanctions on the island. Current U.S. President Joe Biden has lifted some of those Trump-era sanctions on Cuba, but remains in place, strangling the country's economy. Moreover, the United Nations General Assembly has on more than 30 occasions passed resolutions with near and unanimously condemning the U.S. embargo of Cuba. However, any meaningful action by the UN against the embargo requires the approval of the Security Council, where the US have a veto. Yeah, so that's quite a story. Quite a story, that a fascinating story to say the least. Diplomat for such a long time, for decades on, but there's always been Cuba been working for the Cuban government the whole time. It's quite a fascinating story to say the least, guys. Let me know what you guys have thoughts of that in the comments below. I thought it's a fascinating story to say the least, guys. So just keeping an eye on the clock. Let's just because of the time that I record it, I don't want it to overlap certain live stream that takes place at a certain point. So we're going to have a look now at the Kiev Independent, guys. So the Kiev Independent is one of the other reliable services when it comes to what's happening with regards to the war in Ukraine. We're going to look at some of the small stories, and if we get time, we'll also look at the deep state map. So this one here, Zelensky, Russia destroyed key power plant near Kiev since Ukraine ran out of missiles for its defense. So Russian forces destroyed the Tibla thermal power plant in Kiev Oblast because Ukraine had run out of missiles to defend it during an attack, President Volodymyr Zelensky said in an interview. The Trilia TPP was completely destroyed in a Russian strike on Ukrainian energy infrastructure on the 11th of April, leading to 100% loss of the Sarajevo generating capacity. Russia launched 11 missiles at the direction of the plant, according to Zelensky. Ukraine was able to shoot down the first 7 and 4 destroyed Tripita. Why? Because there were 0 missiles. We ran out of all the missiles that protected Tripita TPP, the president said. And this is why we are in desperate need of missiles and anti-air weapons. They need more weapons. They need more defenses, air defenses, because they run out of those missiles. It's going to be easy pickings for Russia to break through lines. And they're already breaking through lines, which we will have a look at the deep state map as well. So it's a major, major issue for them. The plant is located in 30 kilometers south of Kiev and was the main power supplier to Kiev, Zolomiska and Chusky Oblast. Ukraine's capital city is understood to be in the best protected from Russian mass missiles and drone attacks, but stocks of air defense are low across the country as the US military aid fund for Ukraine continues to be held up in Congress. In the meantime, Russia has stepped up target attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, overwhelming local air defenses and destroying some of Ukraine's largest coal-fired power stations. On the 13th of April, amid a renewed diplomatic effort from Kiev to receive more air defense systems, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius announced the immediate delivery of an additional Patriot battery to Ukraine. Let's see what else has been happening, guys. Other sources there. There's been an attack here, guys. So Russian attacks against Ukraine killed 3 and injured 8 over the past day here. So where was this? Russian attacks against Ukraine killed 3 people and injured 8 over the past day, regional authorities said today. That's the 16th of April. Russia targeted a total of 13 Ukrainian oblasts: Shesky, Sumy, Myskos, Lutsk, Olska, Kamarishki, Koskar, Koloviska, Zaporizhzhia, Domoretsk, Kherson, Kazars, and Donetsk Oblast. Casualties were reported in the three latter regions. In Kharkov Oblast, Russian troops attacked an educational institute with a guided aerial bomb in the village of Lursky, according to the governor Olashosky. 2 men aged 63 and 65 were reportedly killed, while 2 other men aged 38 and 35 and 2 women aged 33 and 36 were injured from the attack, the governor has said. A Russian attack on the city of Kashkoviska in Donetsk Oblast killed 1 person and injured 2 others, regional governor had said. Russian troops also reportedly attacked the Bakhmut, Krasnoyarsk and Proskyt districts, damaging 11 buildings, including 3 high-rise building infrastructure facility and administrative building. Russian attacks damaged 9 houses, critical infrastructure, postal office, and warehouse in Kherson Oblast, Governor Oskar had reported. A total of 2 people, including a child, were injured over the past day, he said. Overnight on the 16th, Ukrainian air defense reported intercepted all 9 Russian drones over Kherson, Myskysk, Komarisky, Cherkasy and Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. No casualties were reported. So Ukraine still have obviously some air defenses there. So they've obviously not intercepted 9 drones overnight as well there, which is good to see. This is a report from a report that the Kiev Independent got from Reuters. So Russia and Ukraine almost reached a Black Sea shipping agreement in March, apparently. So Ukraine and Russia negotiated for 2 months deal to ensure the safety of merchant ships in the Black Sea and reached an agreement on a text in March, but Kiev pulled out of the talks in the last minute. Reuters reported on the 6th of April, citing 4 unnamed people familiar with the matter. The talks were mediated by Turkey after being pushed by the UN, the sources told Reuters. In July 2023, Russia pulled out of the Black Sea Grain Initiative, effectively collapsing the deal. The agreement brokered by Turkey and the UN in July 2022 played a crucial role in mitigating a global surge in food prices, particularly caused by Russia's full-scale invasions of Ukraine, allowing Kiev to export its agricultural products via the Black Sea despite the ongoing invasion. Immediately after the collapse of the deal, Russia started targeting attacks on ports in southern Ukraine. The text of the draft agreement, a copy which was seen by Reuters, said that Ukraine and Russia would reportedly provide security guarantees to the merchant ships in the Black Sea, pledging not to strike or seize or search them if they have either emptied or had declared non-military cargo. These guarantees do not apply to warships, civilian vessels, and carrying military goods, with the exception of maritime transportation agreed upon by the parties within the framework of the international missions, the agreement had said. Although Kiev did not officially sign the document, Ukraine gave its consent to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to announce on the 30th of March, the source told Reuters. At the very last minute, Ukraine suddenly pulled out of the deal and the deal was scuttered, one of the sources said, which was confirmed by 3 other news agency sources. The sources said Reuters did not know the reasons for Ukraine's alleged decision. Ukrainian officials did not comment on these reports. As Russia cancelled the grain deal in July 2023, Kiev opened up a new corridor the following month, initially evasion the humanitarian corridor to allow the departure of ships stranded there since the start of the full-scale war. It has since grown into a full-blown trade route. As of April, over 36 million metric tons of goods have been reportedly shipped through it since the opening on August 2023. The route doesn't lead directly through the international waters and the Bosnia Straits, but it hugs the coastlines of Ukraine and NATO members Romania and Bulgaria, allowing ships to bypass the effective blockage imposed by Moscow. In late February, President Volodymyr Zelensky told an interview with CNN that Ukraine would be unable to defend a Black Sea shipping corridor without new US military aid. Interesting, to say the least. Why would Ukraine pull out of that? That's an interesting one. Why would they pull out of it? That is a lot of questions there. Just a report from the General Staff. Russia has lost 4,000... Wow. Struggling here, guys, to say that. 455,000 troops in Ukraine since February 2024. This is the statistic numbers. Normally, I put these on shorts, this one, but given that it's here, I'll give it to you guys now. So Russia has lost 455,340 troops in Ukraine since the beginning of the full-scale invasion of February 2024. 2022, the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces had reported. This number included 920 casualties Russian forces suffered just over the past day. So according to the report, they've also lost 7,189 tanks, 3,809 armoured fighting vehicles, 15,563 vehicles and fuel tanks, 11,609 artillery systems, 1,046 multiple launch rocket systems, 759 air defense systems, 370 47 airplanes, 325 helicopters, 9,277 drones, 26 ships, and boats, and 1 submarine. It's always 1 submarine. They say managed to sink 1 submarine. I wish I knew which submarine they sunk, but there you go. But this is the most accurate report they have of the numbers from Ukraine's perspective, on the losses from Russia's perspective. It's like I've said this in the shorts and that it's not an accurate number, but gives us a general idea of some of the numbers that have been there. I'm just seeing if there's any other reports here that interesting one here. Shosk met Xi in Beijing discussing peace. They discussed peace in Ukraine. Interesting. So the German Chancellor met Xi Jinping in Beijing. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz met with Chinese President Xi Jinping today and said before the meeting that he had planned to discuss how we could contribute to a more just peace in Ukraine. Russia's invasion of Ukraine was one of the many topics to discuss, Scholz said on X before the meeting, which came on the last day of his 3-day visit to China. Chinese state news agency Xinhua said Xi and Scholz had an in-depth exchange of views, and Xi proposed 4 principles to resolve the war. These principles include refraining from selfish gains, working to... Sorry, excuse me, I'm having a bit of reflux, I apologise. Working to cool down the situation and not adding fuel to the fire, creating conditions on the restoration of peace and reducing the negative impact on the world economy. According to Dallas Welly, Schoss teams described the talks as good, but did not provide further details. She did not condemn Russia's actions in Ukraine and repeatedly abstained from voting on UN resolutions on the war, but Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Jing claimed in March that China is a force for peace. Beijing has also maintained close ties with Moscow since February 2022. Ukraine and Europe have diplomatic channels with China opened and repeatedly urging Beijing to use its influence over Moscow to help end the war. Washington expressed its concerns to its allies about China's support for Russia on April the 9th, which led the Chinese Foreign Ministry to declare that Beijing and Moscow had the right to continue normal cooperation. I welcome Shostakov's talks to try and mediate some kind of peace talks of some sorts there, because we do know China has a closer ties to Russia than America and those in Europe. So I do welcome that. Whether it will come to something is a question, guys. We will have to wait and see on the matter, that is for sure. But hopefully we will have something there, guys. So I know I'm just bearing in mind on the time, guys. Just before you guys head out, we're going to have a quick look at the deep state map. So the time stamp on the deep state map is on the 15th of the 4th at 21:15, just for reference. So this is the current situation here with regard to the deep state map. The link for it is in the description if you want to look for it yourself. This is one of the most accurate positions of territory that's taking place. I'm just seeing, going a couple of days. It has been a couple of days actually since I've looked at the deep state map. But it looks like, if I can just pull in, it looks like the main pushing obviously is here. So it looks like, yeah, from Avika, and they're still pushing out. See, so if we pull it back a couple of days, you can see a couple of days ago, just keep pulling it back a few days, you can see that as you pull the days back, you can see that Russia have constantly still continue to push, slowly pushing out territory there. So they're still making progress here. So at the moment, Ukraine are just not being able to slow this down in any way. They can't seem to stop this here. Have they been able to stop any of this? This looks like no. They've not been able to push too much here from the looks of it, which is a good sign. Looks like they've done some engagement here. Have they managed to make any progress here? It doesn't look like Russia have been able to make any progress down there as well, just as a factor. Buckmark here, as they've been making some progress here. Looks like they doesn't look like they may have made a little bit of progress, but nothing too much here. I would say the Ukraine's defense has been pretty solid there, just outside Buckmark, not too bad. Here, let's have a look here. Have there been any change, any kind of movement here? Doesn't appear to be any movement. It looks like Ukraine are pretty solid here. They've still been able to hold their positions here, and not really too much here along. Not really too much movement here either, guys. So as of right now, still obviously Ukraine are in desperate need of weapons and supplies. They are still losing ground in that center there in Donetsk. Something needs to give there. They need to do something about that. They need to stop the movement there without a shadow of a doubt. It is a major issue, and I'm hoping that Europe will get the necessary aid in as soon as possible for them. What's going to happen with regards? I know I did read a few days ago that Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, said that they would be looking at again at the package for Ukraine and Gaza. It will be interesting to see what, if anything, is done this week as they return to Congress and the House of Representatives. What happens with regards to US's aid to Ukraine? Will there finally be something resolved there? I generally hope so. I'm not holding my breath on that because of how staunch some of the Republicans are about giving aid to Ukraine. I know they're more keen on the Gaza one than they are for Ukraine. As for Europe, they need to get more anti-air missiles to Ukraine as soon as possible. The sooner they get the weapons, the ammunition they need, the better. There. Just before we wrap things up, just going to pull the mic away for you guys a bit. The orb and the lava lamp has formed in all its glory. There, turn back on. Thank you. Ollie would like to say thank you guys very much if you have watched all the way through, guys. It is greatly appreciated. You guys are absolutely awesome if you have done so. Thank you all so much for watching. What did you guys make of some of the stories that we covered today? We covered quite a lot of stories. We talked about Poland. We talked about Russia. We talked about Trump. We talked about Iran's attack on Israel and the rapid responses to that. Politicians punching each other in Parliament, as well as the one year on from the conflict in Sudan, and we've also been talking about the war in Ukraine. They haven't really covered Gaza. I'll try and cover Gaza in the Snowflake Corner on Friday for you guys. But let me know what you guys think about some of the stories that we covered today. And once again, guys, if you can, before you guys head out, which is really, really important, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. Be greatly appreciated. Share across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me, financially support Ollie for the work that we do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble or Patreon for exclusive content there as well. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.